Okay, so hello again, everyone. I'm the Prime Minister from the opening government. We are proudly proposing the motion that states this House prefer technology to democracy. I will start by explaining key terms in the motion. Democracy, as you all know, it is the widely practiced state of governance presently, which is about elected representatives. And then technocracy is the government, all control of society, all industry by an elite of technical experts. So usually technocracy get misunderstood when people think it is just we're talking about technicians, like we're talking about computer scientists, we're talking about engineers. But here, technocracy in a broader sense means that when we are appointing leaders or policymakers into different branches of the government, we are putting people who are expert in that certain field. Let's say if it is education, we are putting there the experts in education, the people who have experience, the people who have research. If it's about the Ministry of Gender, we are putting there like people who are really informed about the gender injustice, gender inequality. If it's about local governance, we are putting there people who are knowledgeable about that field of local governance. If it's about economics, we are putting to leadership positions and policymaking positions the expert in local governance, people who are in contact with the citizens and who know what the population actually know. Another mistake that people usually do is confusing democracy and good leadership. We as the opening government, we believe that democracy not synonymous to good leadership, and we believe that the technocracy is the best thing to lead to good leadership. I'm going to explain the flaws of democracy, which shows that it's actually not synonymous to good leadership. POI taken.
Donald Trump was the head and founder of the Trump Towers before.
Yeah, thank you very much. Exactly. Yeah, so I got your point. So exactly, this is what we're talking about. And actually, the election of Donald Trump is a testament to the failure of democracy, because Donald Trump was elected into the typical form of democracy where there is electoral college and the person who happens to get the most vote is the president. But we believe that Donald Trump, who is a business expert, is not the best person to lead the country because he is not a technocrat in the political sense. A technocrat in a political sense, in terms of being the president of a country, is a person who is experienced, is a person who knows what the people need, and is a person who is able to deliver according to the needs of the country. So in a technocratic country, we will not have Donald Trump as the president just because he happened to get the majority of votes in the electoral college, but we would have someone who is actually able to serve, who actually understands the needs of the people, and who is ready to work on that. So how has democracy failed? We believe that in ethnically diverse countries, like many African countries, people vote along identity lines. Even in the US or other countries which are divided by ideologies, people vote along ideological lines. This means that even if you put, people actually say this, even if you put a dog there, as far as that dog identifies with their ethnicities or with identity group, they are going to elect that dog. So in these places, people do not vote the person who is most able to serve, but they vote based on identity lines. We have another problem where for elections, it requires expensive political campaigns. This means that people who can best serve are not getting the spotlight, but people who have money to finance their campaigns are the ones who are gonna get in contact, reach the large number of people, and end up in policymaking positions. We have also seen the problem of charisma, charm, and good rhetorics. We have a famous example of Kennedy versus Richard Nixon, where people voted for Kennedy because on TV he was more charismatic, he was more appealing, not just because of his political ability, but because he was good looking, he had good rhetorics. And we believe that in cases of in the way democracy functions presently, people do not vote for people necessarily based on their skills, but because of how appealing they are on their charisma. We also have other examples where people have taken speeches given by men and they reproduce the same speech in the voices of women. And people say that we don't think this speech is compelling because it is said by women. So we have groups of people who are going to vote, not because of the skills, but because they feel like, okay, since this speech is coming from a man like me, actually this person can serve. But if the same content is given by a woman, people suddenly feel that this person cannot be a good leader. Do you imagine? And then we have the influence of money and lobbying in politics, where policymakers, representatives are not going there just because they are able, but because they are because they are susceptible to the influence of lobbying money donors. We have also seen another problem where we have officials who lack knowledge on what they have to do. For example, we have seen in the US Congress, when it is time to start questioning Facebook, Google, where representatives don't know the questions to ask because they lack information, they're ignorant about technology, they're ignorant about computer science, the works of data. So in cases like this, our government are not able to hold these big giant companies accountable, like Google, like Facebook, like Amazon. Okay, so I was saying how presently we have seen in the US Congress how many officials, representatives, they lack information knowledge about data sciences, and because of that they cannot hold accountable big companies like Google, like Facebook, because of this lack of knowledge, they fail to hold these companies accountable. And then we know how very influential these companies are basically on the market. So if we have officials who cannot hold them accountable, this is where it results into tax evasion, into basically companies exploiting people, and then our representatives, our officials cannot do anything because they are ignorant about those kind of businesses. So ladies and gentlemen, technocracy is very good because I can give an example of East Asian miracles. We have a very famous example of Indonesia. Suharto, the president of Indonesia, the former president, he was very famous for shielding experts from political pressure. I'm quoting this, and this was very instrumental in reducing massive poverty. We have another example of China, where China has did a very great thing in reducing massive poverty because they put technocrats into leadership positions and they shield them, they protect them from the political pressure, and they give them the time and space they need to deliver and to serve the people.
Okay, we'd like to thank the Prime Minister for their speech, and now call the Leader of Opposition. Your time starts when you start speaking. Here.
Okay, thank you for being here. I will start re-ensuring we understand the definition of technocracy and what a technocratic government is based upon. It is the idea that an outsider with no political experience that is technically skilled will be ruling. So we've come to an understanding with what Chris had explained, that it's meant to be as if the expert in every field is going to be ruling that particular area of government. However, we should take into consideration all of the consequences that come with somebody who's not politically experienced coming into a position of power. For starters, they might come from backgrounds that we don't necessarily understand. And typically these people are of elite classes more than anything, and they're the people who are rich and have a lot of money. But when some of their experiences affect their decision making and affect their use of their power, it's going to be controversial to have such leaders in place. And we also must take into consideration the fact that it's the system, the political system and voting system is somewhat poorly managed among these rulers. And if we're going to talk about, I'm actually not going to talk about democracy much because my partner will, but if we'll speak about just the very basic thing when it comes to the idea of voting, and he took my teammate's question and spun it around. He didn't even let him finish, but the one about Donald Trump, he was using Donald Trump as a reason why democracy is such a fail. But the truth is, this man was a businessman. He wasn't, even if we're talking about all these things that make him that make democracy really unimportant or like inefficient, we're using an example of somebody that was already unrelated to what's supposed to be happening, and he's has nothing to do with the political field. This isn't even the way that democracy should have been applied, but here we have a huge man in power that had nothing to do with what he was with the domain that he was supposed to be. Go ahead.
Wasn't Donald Trump democratically elected?
Donald Trump was democratically elected, but Donald Trump.
Thank you.
But Donald Trump was not in a position that should have made him eligible to be a democratic leader. And I'll start with something else now, because this path took too long and I'm not going to talk about democracy anymore. But disadvantages of technocracy. The power affects human decisions, and this is by nature. So when somebody who is considered to be an expert, considered to be the best at what they do, they're put into this position of power. You have to take into consideration that they will somehow abuse the power, or maybe that's not inevitable, but it's very highly likely that something like that takes place. The economic power taken over by the most economically knowledgeable is not necessarily something of disadvantage, but it can cause disadvantage when this person or this individual leading an institution decides to abuse that power, or basically misuse it for his own or her own advantages. As to, I'll try to make a few rebuttals on what the Prime Minister has said. He said that democracy does not necessarily mean good leadership, but that the technocratic government, or the basis of the technocratic government in the idea of the spirit of serving people will be a path of good leadership. Now, there is no guarantee in a situation like that, and the world right now is certainly not eligible for such things like that, for a technocratic government to happen, because we don't have the technology, we don't have it's not available yet for us to actually apply a technocratic government and have it be a successful style of government. And he spoke a little bit about the bias in voting. He spoke a little bit about the bias in voting that is caused in democracy, or that exists in democracy, that people will more likely vote for someone for the sake of charisma, and it bases on appeal and how their ideologies are built. But if people are not stupid, adults are educated, they will not just look at the TV screens or advertisements and whatnot, and they'll say, oh, this person seems like they're doing something right, and so I'll vote for them. There's a reason that campaigns exist. There's a reason that they're able to read into the policies that these people are speaking about. And again, we're sure that there are no guarantees in everything that the democratic system gives, but you cannot completely shut down the fact that people are capable of making decisions for themselves, and it's not all about being brainwashed into believing that just because someone's charismatic that they should be ruling. I think I'm done. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Well, I would like to thank the Leader of Opposition, and now call the Deputy Prime Minister. Your time starts when you start speaking. Here.
So I'll start now. So hello everyone. So to start with, I want to mention, to refute first of all what the opposition was stating. First of all, when Alaa mentioned that outsider, expert means outsider, Are you kidding? This is not outsider at all. He is an expert in that field. It means he is the one and the right one and the best one to be in that position, better than any other politician that we can maybe vote, that the majority can be vote for. So yes, the second point about Donald Trump, actually Donald Trump is an example of how democracy failed, and it's not supporting the democracy itself. Moving now to our personal arguments, I want to start with a metaphor that says when we put the right piece of puzzle in its right place, the puzzle will be completed. And this is what this is describing and summarizing, let's say, the technocracy. So I want to move to the democracy, where democracy failed actually, and then I will focus on my technocracy. So first of all, I will mention some points of the failure of democracy. First of all, democracy is ineffective unless voters educate themselves on governing decisions. And secondly, the structure of democracy depends upon the will of the majority. And here it's a critical point. When you say the majority, the will of the majority of that, let's say the government of that country, the majority would be, as my partner first in the beginning said, my colleague said, that the majority tend to support their ethnicity, so, or their worldview, or their religion, let's say, or their opinion. If the majority is 51% are all from the same worldview, they will support the one who is from their having the same ideology. They are the same ideology. So what about the remaining percentage of the whole population? Who will respect their opinion? So thirdly, democracy can encourage mob rule. And fourthly, the cost of democracy is something that many people don't realize exists yet. No, let me finish a bit. Democracy requires more time to implement changes. And finally, I want to mention that the structure of a democracy is a person-first process. Moving to the technocracy. Actually, technocracy, it's not like democracy, where democracy voting of the majority. If I have the majority, I will be winning. Sometimes maybe by chance, democracy can win. Maybe by chance win when the right person come with the democracy to the right place. But actually, technocracy always put us in a good advantage and do not put us in the risk to put the wrong person in the wrong place. So technocracy means that we will put the expert, the technical expert, in any field, not only, as my partner firstly mentioned about misunderstanding, that some can understand that it is only about technology or engineering, but technocracy, it is about the experts of any field of economy or education or anything else that is related to the government ruling. So technocracy, as I said, it's more productive. For example, we have China and Singapore as good examples in reducing massive poverty in their countries just because they use technocracy. So, yes, you can take your question. I can take your question.
We take a highly professional scholar of the economy into the head of state, all right? Who will gonna judge him? The second one, who will gonna listen to them? This is the system which in the vicious cycle, it's always eating its own selves.
What? I didn't get your point.
Let me repeat it to you again.
Please fast.
When you pick the best person, and without any political career, without any discussion, without any debate, and into the state, his words will be, I don't know, the word of God from
Time.
He will be the person who will not be judged. Time. I have 2 minutes left.
The POI went over time. You can go.
Yeah, Okay, thank you. He will take the person, the right person. It's good to discuss among people, the citizens of the government, who they want to be the leader to be. But actually, these people are not well educated. We cannot. We want people to choose, but actually, they are not. All of them are good in choosing the right person. They do not know who is good economist and who is not. Who is good in ruling the education or who is not. So here comes to the knowledge. We need the knowledge to use it in our governments. We do not need only the opinion of people to choose. So as I said about China, China lifted 300 million out of poverty. So here, when we speak about technocracy, we are saying that it is emerging between two things: the leadership plus the economics. It means they will be good in leadership and also in their field, which are expertise in. Also, we take the experts and shield them from political pressure. So that's why we believe our side and proudly believe that technocracy is better than democracy. We do not deny some countries could maybe reach their goals with democracy, but when we look to the whole world, democracy didn't work effectively. But when we use technocracy, it is more effective. Why? Because technocracy uses knowledge. Knowledge is the key for our success. This cannot be denied. So knowledge will be used in order by experts in order to rise up the status of these countries and the government to be more productive. Thank you.
And now call the member of government.
So I'm going to start with one. First, the mechanisms that we think the open opposition are talking about, and second one, why is better for in a comparative way. So we have the comparative both words, not just talk about what technocracy is okay, but we have to talk about what democracy is not the best way. So let's start with mechanisms. Why would we think that in democracy is more corruption and with democracy is more like conflict of interest? First, we have to understand how democracy works in nowadays. So for you have a campaign, or for you to be a candidate or to postulate to a public church, you have to be money, and you have to have the capacity to do publicity and to do campaigns on TV, on radio, on Facebook, and so on, to arrive to more people. And if you arrive to more people, it's more probable that they know you and they can vote for you. What is the problem with this? That you really need money. And we can see how nowadays there are a lot of people that want to be politicians, but they cannot be even a candidate because they don't have money. What's the problem here? That they have to cooperate with enterprises or with companies that say to him, okay, you want to be a candidate? Okay, I'm like an enterprise, I'm going to help you, I'm going to finance your political campaign, and we can be like friends. So if you are in power, you have to promise me that you are going to do good things for me as an enterprise and good things for me because I'm helping you in an economic way in now. So I think this is the mechanism why it's more corruptive, because you have to respond or you have to answer to a company or to a enterprise that is helping you, and in that way you cannot good in necessarily in a good way. Because for example, if your political campaign is financial by, I don't know, building companies, when you are in power, you have to answer to the building companies, and you have to build and to build and to build, yeah. And probably you have to like remove like nature, or you have to remove trees, or you have to remove other things, because you have to build and build and build because you promised this to the company. I think this is the way and the mechanism why it's very, very probable that there are more corruption and more conflict interest. Secondly, we have to speak about okay, your point.
Shay, I believe you might be right, but still, technocracy is a system which only can be worked with the technology. We need more advanced technology, because the technology will gonna rule. The technology will gonna compete against the technocrats. We need
that's not right.
better
Thank you.
robots and androids.
I get your point, Jane, but that's not right, because I can be like an expert in education or an expert in culture, and I don't really have to be like big machinery or big technology, because it's more and even if it's that way, in democracy you need to technology, so I think it's not okay. So but second thing, we have that people in democracy, people who vote or suffragette are more exposed to be shared. Why? Because like the politicians need votes, they have campaigns and they have publicity to say, hey, I'm going to help you, hey, I'm ready for you, and hey, I'm the person who are changing your life, so vote for me. And I think that people is not really prepared. Why? Because the difference that OGs talk about, they're not prepared, because normally they don't want to read the politicize the purpose or the arguments to the politician. They just vote in a passion way. So I like it, but I don't know what he's saying about, or even if I know what he's saying about, I vote for him. And then because they have another option and other priorities, because they receive help of other companies or other enterprises, they are not working for me, they are working for that enterprise. So I think it's less probable that I, like a person that a suffragette, are really interested, I really know about what is the purpose of the candidates. But two, we have more effective in our case. Why? Because like in democracy, you have to like to people. I have to like to you because I want to you and I want to you vote for me. What does it mean? That I know I'm not focused on my politician publics politicize or on my politician propose. I just only focus that you vote for me and you choose me. And then if I'm in power, I don't like you and I don't care about you because I'm in power now, and it's less probable that you can do something to that. And two, we have in technocracy, we don't have to worry about re-election. You know, in democracy you have to worry about a re-election. So you think, oh, I have to do this because other people are going to approve my things or whatever. But I think it's exclusive a democracy. In technocracy you don't have that problem, because you don't have to like the people to be in power. You just have to have the good capacities, and you have to demonstrate that you are good in your field. And what no more points please. And what weren't good in your place is in your field is a better thing when you don't have like political sex, or you don't have political like interests. So you are just focused on your field and what is the best for education, and what is the best for culture, and what is the best for economic ways, and what is the best for wealthy. You are not worried about to like to people. You just have to know how to do good in your field, and in that order of yes, it's most probable that you focus in your field and you say, I don't talk about approbation or not. I'm just talking about what is the best for the country we think is more effective. But in second point, because of the time server, sorry, because in other thing, because for example in emergencies or in pandemics like now, it's more probable that that politicians, that technocratic politicians have to have better like decisions, because really they have how the economic works and they have how the world works, and they do know how what is the best for community and what is the best for country. So I think in emergency cases, it's not about no, you have to go to work anyway. I don't care if you are going sick, because for me it's much more important economy. No, in technocracy it's more probable that they compare that healthy field with economic field, compare themselves, and to try to search and to find the best option for people within the there. And about minority rights, we think minority rights are good and are better in our side. Why? Because in democracy, for example, I don't care about indigenous because they are not majority, and I just win if majority vote and elect me. So I don't like minorities, and I don't care about minorities precisely because I don't care, because they are not voting for me, because they are not a representative number for me. In technocracy, they are more included because there is not interests, and there is more probable that I really care about it, because I know that they're
time. That's 7 minutes 15 seconds. Thank you. I would like to thank the member of government and now call the member of opposition. Your time starts when you start speaking. Here.
Okay, thank you very much. And so we do not say that technocracy does not have some positive sides, and we do not say that democracy is absolutely good and something like that. But we believe that technocracy in some cases, for example, crisis, can be nice. But actually, we say that democracy has more advantages than the technocracy, and that's why we stand for this. And so, but first of all, some points of rebuttal. So what the government side says to us is absolutely untrue because it's not unique on their side. So they say that the first government says us, open government, says us that these people will have some unique scientific skills, but actually believe that in our world, people who have experience in some spheres and people who have, I don't know, some other skills. And for example, a minister of economy will not be a person who absolutely does nothing about economy and so on. So we believe that we have this in our case, but this person will not be just specialized scientifically in this sphere. So also from the closing government, we hear about the democracy is a political regime where needs and interests are where for example like a person can promise something and then abandon these promises, but we can have this both on your side, because the person can promise something before being appointed because he wants to be appointed and so on, and then just do not fulfill this. So where the difference? And so they're talking about corruption, but we can have this on both sides. So what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk why actually it's better in democracy, because like the government will realize the interests and needs of people, and why it's good, and actually why unpopular decisions and so on also be taken in our world. So we believe that a state is not a robot, and it's actually very important to correspond some problems which occur, unexpected problems, and which are not which are not a part of system of systematic decisions and so on. And for example, we believe that it's better when in the power will be a person who can correspond to some unexpected problems and do not act according to some schemes and so on. And actually we have this in the world of the government. But what is more important is that in democracy, it's very good because it can hear the interests and needs of everyone. For example, if a person wants to support some reforms and so on, he can vote for someone who represent his needs, and thus his needs and interests may be satisfied. So we have this competition in democracy where there are different political leaders, parties and so on who promise something, and then people can choose them and thus fulfill their needs and interests. So we believe that if society needs something, the only way which, like if it's not so immediate for a state, or if it does not benefit economically, or it does not benefit technologically, the only way to fulfill these interests and needs is to vote in elections and to elect someone who will represent these needs. So we believe that it's possible only in democracy. And actually, what are the consequences? We have a more happy society because he understands that if he wants to solve some problems and so on, he just can elect someone who will represent his needs and thus be more satisfied with his needs. But in technocracy, we have a situation when the government just focuses on systematization of everything, on simplification of different processes, on maximization of profit for the state, but not on the interests of people, because in technocracy, the government is interested just on state, focuses on state and not on people, because it's interested in consequences and not on the interest of people itself. And what's more, like the rights of minorities and some unpopular decisions. Well, we believe that democracy brought us many good values. For example, that interests of people are bound with the interests with the state directly, and so democracy focuses not on development of state but on general welfare of society. And it means even if the consequences of for some people may not be profitable for the state, it still will adopt these laws and so on. Thus, we have the rights of minorities, we have rights of some ethnic groups, we have the ability of people to support euthanasia and some other unpopular decisions, because like they cannot be so profitable for the state and they cannot maximize the profit and so on. But democracy focuses on the value of individuals themselves and not on the state. So we believe that only in the world of democracy it's possible to fulfill the interests of these vulnerable people. And actually it became possible historically only due to this democratic development of the world. And so actually we have the equality of everyone before the law. We have the some other values such as freedom of speech, and so also some other values. And actually, yes, and also we believe that democracy is basically a guarantee of rights of these people. We also believe that in a lot of the government, these minorities and people who want who stand for some unpopular decisions will not be represented in the parliament and so on, because now they're not elected, they can be just appointed by some supreme powers and so on. And well, we believe that like the possibility that these people are presented in parliament in some governmental structures and so on is low in status quo, but in the governmental on the governmental side, we make the chances for these people much less, because now they have to possess some scientific expertise and they have to possess some degree of science and so on to be represented in the parliament, and so they cannot just protect their rights in any way. We think that we should not consider democracy and technocracy integrated. We believe that like the government explains us the benefits of technocracy by taking into consideration status quo, because like some values became possible only due to democracy. So we should consider them separately, and thus we believe that democracy has more advantages than technocracy, and we prefer this. Thank you.
Now it's time to systematize what this game is about. So, all right, I will compare the world that we have on the side of government with the world that we have on our side, on the side of opposition. So, what do we have on the side of government? We have interests of a limited amount of people presented by the authority. So, we understand that just some people are in this authority, and people's interests who are outside of it cannot even be addressed to. Moreover, we have a lot of doubts how these people are elected. So government tells us, okay, so in our world, people will not be elected due to their charisma. Okay, that's nice, all right, but we don't see how people are going to be elected in your world. So they will be just appointed by some people. Okay, by who? So we understand that sometimes these people may be really biased and they may work in somebody's interests. So somebody who has some power may appoint them, and then only their interests will be represented, and we try to avoid them. So the second government also tells us this stuff. So in our world, so in the world of democracy, people need money to be in power. However, when it comes to technocrats, it's not like this. So they tell us that there will be no corruption, but we don't believe this. We don't believe that people will be appointed without any corruption, because nobody can understand who is the cleverest, who is the best expert, and so on. People will just appoint those who are really great for them, for their interests. So in our world, in the world where... No, thank you. In the world where democracy should be, we understand that people's interests are represented. People can choose whoever they want to see in power, because they can care about their interests. So they have a choice of people who can be in power, and we try to understand that this point is really important. So my teammate told you that it's really great when interests of a great amount of people are represented, so that the majority of problems may be solved. Okay, the next point, what this game is about, is that in the world of government, great ideas may be present, of course, but these ideas may fail to be implemented. Because my teammate told you that the country is not a robot. So authority should be flexible and can adjust to human nature. And running a country is not a mathematic problem which can be solved according to some formulas. We believe that in our world, in the world of democracy, there will be effective leadership, and people can understand human nature. Because in the world of government, we believe that some great ideas will be present because clever people are in power. However, they may have their systems in their heads and they cannot address people's needs. So they may have some great ideas, but they cannot just implement the ideas, because country is not so simple to rule, and people need to understand human nature, not just some economy formulas and so on. Okay, the next thing is that in the world of government, only economic problems will be solved. So this sphere of economy will be prioritized. And we believe that it's actually a bad thing, because people in this world of government just care about maximizing some benefits. However, in our world, we believe that all problems will be taken care of, and they are taken care of because we believe that we represent status quo. So no sphere is prioritized, and we believe that is actually important in this game. No, I will not take it yet. So we believe that my teammate has told you about this. So my teammate told you that in the world of technocracy, people don't care about some great amounts of people's problems, like lack of freedom of speech, inequality, discrimination, and so on. So because this does not directly affect some benefits, some economical benefits, and so on. However, in the world of democracy, these problems will be taken care of because people have some troubles connected with this, and where their interests can be represented, they will just say that they need this. No, I will not take it now. Please stop doing this. So the next point we are taking care of is that in our world, authorities try as hard as they can because they have a lot of competition. So there are a lot of parties, a lot of other competitors for these people, and they try to address people's needs to satisfy them. So they actually do need people to like them. However, closing government told us that technocrats, they care just, they are just capable, and they don't care if people like them or not. And we believe that this point is actually tells us a lot about the case, because in our world, people are interested to satisfy some people's needs, and in the world of government, this does not work this way. So people who are elected are just fine, no competition and so on. No other alternatives are possible. So they have no motivation to work as hard as they can. Okay, now I take a POI.
Sorry, CGPI. There are not only economic, but there are also health, education, and many other experts which are working together.
Okay, but as I said, in the world of this technocracy, people just try to maximize the amount of benefits. And these benefits are usually economic ones, because they can be really addressed to, and people can see how this goes to progress. However, some other problems will not be taken care of, and I have already mentioned these problems, like lack of freedom of speech, inequality, and so on, because people have no idea if this problem is solved or not, and so on. So what do we have in the world of government? We have sufferings, because clever people are in power, that's true, but they have no idea what real people need, because they cannot address their ideas. People cannot have this power of speech and power of expressing their ideas, and they cannot just say what they need to make their lives better. However, in our world, we have a much happier society, because people can address to people's needs and their problems. People can tell what they need, and people can elect whoever they want to see in the government, whoever can address to their problems as good as they want them to address. Thank you.